Let's broaden the conversation. We speak to Guy Leitch, Aviation Expert, for more. A very good evening to you, Guy. Thank you for your time. We've just listened to AXA and the BMA detailing interventions to ensure seamless travel at OR Tambo International Airport and other ports of entry. What do you make of some of the measures we heard being announced today?
Yeah, hi, good evening, Paul. Nice to be with you. Well, yeah, it's on the one hand, it's absolutely great that that AXA and the BMA are assuring passengers that they have got the matter in hand, and that the systems they're putting people in place to cater for the high demand. Tomorrow, the beginning of what is essentially almost the pre-Christmas long weekend, and it builds up to Christmas and then New Year. So this is a massive demand, and it's hard to keep people at work. I have to say, though, that in the broader context, I'm a little concerned that these assurances ring a little bit hollow, because as we all know, AXA is facing a legion of problems, not just obviously with the recent failure of the fuel flow manifold valve, and they still haven't, despite 2 years of promises, even begun to implement a backup for that. So the whole airfield's fuel supply is still reliant on that one patched up valve. The BMA fell over a week ago, and again, we're hearing no actual assurances that the actual software of the system has got support and backup to make sure it doesn't fall over again. And then, of course, there are other background management issues relating to corruption and so on that AXA is facing. So, we can only hope for the best that Ms. Mpofu is going to be lucky, I suppose, in actually making all the promises come true.
So we also heard AXA CEO Mpumi Mpofu confirming, as you speak about failing to implement a backup system, she spoke quite a great deal about last week's jet fuel disruption having been resolved, and also spoke about the technological challenges that are being addressed until the system is replaced next year. How best can one understand the bigger impact of these technological challenges? Because you talk about having to, how this has been long coming, because it should have been resolved long ago.
Well, absolutely. The fact of the matter is that you don't have airliners that have just one engine, and yet here you've got an entire airport that's just got one engine, which is the single point fuel supply. So if one component in that whole fuel supply fails, there's no backup. And that remains a real concern. As I mentioned, they were promising they would address that 2 years ago. It still hasn't been done. The budget of 28 or so billion rand for the upgrade, it's also been in the pipeline for a long time, particularly, by the way, regarding Cape Town International's long overdue upgrade. But yes, we're looking forward to getting a midfield terminal for cargo and ultimately to handle the low-cost carriers, the budget airlines. So, as long as the money's available and they spend it wisely, in a year or two, we may be optimistic. And again, we hope that they deploy enough people. And let me point out that it is not AXA who employs the immigration officials. It's SARS who provides those sort of people. So we need to see a concerted effort right across the board if we're going to avoid massive queues. You'll notice that she did say that passengers should arrive at least 3 hours before the flight. So they're still anticipating quite a substantial excess demand from their normal capacity.
What measures do you think will be needed to prepare for the higher passenger volumes, more so in early January when people start arriving back?
Well, obviously one of a key advantage, both in terms of the price of your airline ticket and in terms of the load on the system, is to choose slightly less popular times. Perhaps come back not on the last day of the school holidays, but a few days before, or if you can, a week or two after, if you don't have children at school. Those are the sort of adjustments I would make, because also, let's not forget that the dynamic pricing model of airline tickets makes seats at the peak demand times incredibly expensive. So it's worth passengers trying to avoid the peak demand times. I think it's good advice to make sure you come to the airport with plenty of time beforehand. And beyond that, I'm afraid there's not much else people can do other than just be patient with the inevitable queues that are going to be there.
And very lastly, before you go, how best would you rate AXA and BMA in their efforts to do some sort of damage control, as we listened to some of the pointers that were made and the apologies that were also brought forward today?
Yeah. Okay. So there are two aspects to that question. The first is the political aspect, and honestly, to my mind, they're just spinning. They're giving reassurances which they hope they're going to get lucky on, and paper over the cracks in the system. But yes, in the longer term, I think that we can expect that they do have the funding, and they will find the necessary manpower and capability to upgrade the systems that they've been promising for so long. So hopefully next year it won't be quite a crisis.
Very well. Thank you so much. Thanks for speaking to us this evening. Guy Leitch, who's an aviation expert there, giving us a sense of some of the outcomes of AXA and BMA's meeting this afternoon.